Hey guys, it's Candace.
And it's Elena.
And you're listening to Cousins on Crime.
Hey girl, hey.
Hey.
Well, and silence.
Oh.
Yeah, our brains are a little foggy.
Yeah, it's feeling grim. People are leaving their kids in the hot cars again. It's just like, what is happening? I don't understand.
I have not heard that, but I mean, I guess it happens every year.
This guy, thank you. It happens. It happens.
Yeah.
Why are we still doing this?
I don't know.
So this guy gets home and his daughter was asleep in the back and thought, you know what? I don't want to wake her up.
No, he didn't.
He did too. And then he went inside and played video games. And then his wife gets home like a couple hours later. She's a doctor.
Oh no.
Anesthesiologist. And she gets home and she's like, where's Parker? And he's like, oh crap.
Oh, what?
I don't understand this. I don't understand. Why are we leaving pets and kids in the car? I don't understand.
No. I mean, I had a friend an acquaintance who did it before. I mean, she left her son in the car and it was like it wasn't a time where she normally had her child.
Accidentally left him in there?
Yeah, she went into the store and
what?
She had just, I don't know, something about she had just picked him up from daycare, but it was not a normal time for her to pick him up from daycare. And she was just like, had to run into the store real quick, not even thinking. I mean, she was a nurse too.
Oh my God.
Probably up for several hours. And her mind was just get the groceries and get what I need and get out. And by the time she came outside, police were there. And I guess someone called in saying her child was in the car. But I mean, yeah, we have lapses in our brains, but
I just can't imagine having that lapse though.
Yeah. Your child, I know.
That just kind of feels like something that's an extension of your body. That you I had really bad, and I still have bad anxiety, but I had really bad postpartum anxiety with both my pregnancies. And I would panic thinking that I left them. I would, so having the twins, I would take Hazel out and put her in her car seat. And then I would have both the twins when they were babies in their car seats. Like taking them from the house to the car.
Yeah.
And I would set them on the, next to the car so I could put them in the car.
Right.
And then as I would drive away, the image of them sitting next to the car was stuck with me. So I would panic.
Like, did I put them in the car?
Yes. Did I put them in the car? Or they're still sitting in the driveway on one side and then in the lawn on the other side. No. So that's something that I just can't think of being that detached or somewhere else that you forget.
Well, yeah.
A whole nother person. Anyways. Yeah. I've got to go.
I can't.
I've got to go.
I can't tell you honestly, but this guy's problem was he said, I don't want to wake my child up.
He said he didn't want to wake her up.
No, I'm waking my child up.
I've never heard of this. I've heard of saying, I'm going to sit here for another 20 minutes until they wake up. I've had friends do an Instagram story and be like, they fell asleep on the way here. I'm going to give them 20 more minutes and I'm going to go inside. I've never in my life heard of someone going, well, I'll be back. No. But first, PlayStation.
Yeah. Ooh,
anyways, okay, let's get on with it.
Okay.
Because I have a really important story to talk about. I'm putting on my story hat.
All right, let's do it. I'm ready.
Lena, when I mentioned the year 2021, what do you think of?
COVID.
That's it. COVID. Thank you, the big C word. The COVID outbreak hit us in the U.S. In the spring of 2020. We had heard, we'd been getting news about it since kind of January, February, and we were like, "Holy crap,
this is happening!"
My gosh! And then people just kept coming into the U.S. and we knew it was a matter of time. And then a year later, in 2021, we still didn't know what was going on. We still, it was so much was up in the air.
We were getting cabin fever.
I mean, we were running out of toilet paper. Although we never ran out of toilet paper, but I mean.
Well, because didn't Daniel put you on one square?
I could never use one square. Okay, no matter what in restrictions he puts me on, I would never use one square. Let's be clear about that. He would be folding and stuff. Freak. But in the US, to me, it seemed like we couldn't get our crap together for a while there.
Yeah.
I feel like every state had different ideas.
Oh, for sure.
They had different restrictions, masks or social distancing or something else, and none of it was being enforced. It was like, oh, wear a mask, but nobody was saying, oh, you can't come in here because you don't have a mask on.
Well, I think a lot of places were saying that.
Nowhere that I went. See, I was in South Carolina. I don't know how it was here in Texas. I mean, I could guess. A bunch of gun-toting, slinging people.
No,
going.
There was a lot of mask wearing, and I had gone to the grocery store one day, and I forgot to wear a mask, and everyone in the store, I had done half of my grocery shopping, and then I looked up and I'm like, I'm not wearing a mask. That's why people are looking at me weird.
Get out of here. We don't want your kind.
But yeah, nobody said anything to me about not wearing my mask. So
see, there you have it.
Yeah.
There you have it. There would be signs on the door that says, wear a mask if you come in here, but nobody was actually enforcing it. It just felt like there was so much inconsistency.
Right.
Some people were living in fear of catching a virus that could compromise, their health or worse, kill them.
Yeah.
Like it did millions of other people. I know for me, I was deeply affected by the death of my friend due to complications from COVID. She was so careful, like me. Like one thing we talked about a lot was how we felt that we were in the wrong because we were being so careful. Like, we felt isolated from others because we were trying to be so careful.
Right.
Her young son at the time had many doctor's appointments and things like that could not be avoided. She had to take him to the doctor very early in his life, and she would find herself in clinics and in hospitals and x-rays and a number of places like that. And she was frequently exposed to the public, even though she did wear her mask.
And doctor's offices. I mean, that's a big risk.
So before her death, and especially after, I tried to be as careful as I could for myself and my family. But, some people didn't feel like that it was that big of a deal. And they weren't interested in participating in precautionary measures or for whatever reason. I happen to know that other countries were doing a lot better than we were in the U.S. I felt like other countries had such good, like the UK. We spoke to our family in England, and we learned about the COVID restrictions there in the UK. They were being taken seriously and actually enforced by law. According to gov.uk, in order to safely commingle with others, you had to have what's called a support bubble. And my mother-in-law, she would talk about her bubble, and like, I didn't really understand, but it kind of made sense to me. But you form this bubble with people in your household that have not been in contact with other people.
Okay.
And then you could choose another household to commingle with that has also not. So you form a support bubble with another household. So you can safely mingle with them.
Okay.
And that's the decision you make. But you also have to qualify to enter a support bubble.
Oh.
So like if you're a single mom and you need a support bubble, like if you have a child or if you have somebody with disabilities living in your home.
Mm-hmm.
So as a family, you would have to agree, okay, we're only going to see the Smiths, you know? Like,
Right.
that's it.
Okay.
So in the spring of 2021, England was quiet and people were keeping an eye on the daily numbers like we were.
Mm-hmm.
Are the cases going down? Are they going up? What does it look like for returning to school and work? And is there a new strain?
Yeah.
Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Remember when they were like, oh, there's a new variant?
Yeah. I mean, just recently,
oh,
not too long ago.
Well, they're always like the flu.
Right.
Now we will always be dealing with new variants of COVID. That's just, thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, we were wondering, and so is England, when will this end?
Mm-hmm.
Will it end?
Right.
Like, really? So the lockdown had been in place for a few months at this point, and people were getting restless
Mm-hmm.
as they felt like they were on the brink of freedom, and they were being warned by, you know, the authorities. They were saying, yes, we're getting there. We're getting there, guys, but we have to be careful about how we lift these restrictions because we know how quickly it can spread.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So if you're feeling the tension, if you remember how you kind of felt uncertain, maybe a little scared, maybe a little hopeful for the future, that's where we find ourselves. That was the culture for this case, the setting, if you will. It's where we find ourselves. So it was March 3rd, 2021.
Happy birthday to me.
Happy birthday to you. Sarah Everard was a marketing executive, and she had just finished dinner at a friend's house in Clapham, London. She stepped out of the home on Leithwaite Road, and it was about 9:00. She turned onto the sidewalk to head home, which was about 2.5 miles away. She phoned her boyfriend at 9:13 p.m. and spoke with him for a bit as she walked before saying goodbye. But she never made it home.
Oh, no.
The next day, March 4th, when her boyfriend Josh wasn't able to reach her again and again and again, since the last time he had spoken with her, he reported her missing. She was reliable, and he knew this was not her. Like, she would not just not answer and not call him back. Police were concerned right away.
Oh,
and this is the very first thing they did right in this case. And it would turn out to be an incredibly thorough investigation.
Okay.
Like this, if they're not teaching this in case law, like they're doing something wrong. It's just an amazing example of quick, amazing police work.
All right.
Here in the U.S., you know, we hear this, give it some time. She'll call.
Yes.
Maybe she got delayed with her friend. Maybe she went to another friend's house. Maybe she went somewhere else. She has every right. But senior investigating officer Catherine Goodwin, remember Sarah's name, practically jumping off the page in that morning's briefing. Officer Goodwin told the BBC in the documentary called Sarah Everard, The Search for Justice, that a 33-year-old woman going missing doesn't contact her family and friends. That doesn't sound right. It's uncommon in the UK. And I feel very safe when I'm in England, like out walking by myself, even if I need to go down to the co-op and just walk down there because I don't drive when I'm over there. But if I need to walk down there, even in the dark, I feel safe.
Really?
Like, yeah, it's just different. It's just like a different culture. And it wasn't like Sarah was being careless. She wasn't walking down back alleys from her friend's house to her house or through like rural fields, like cutting through.
Yeah.
She was using well-lit streets with lots of activity and homes lining the streets. She was also wearing very distinctive, bright clothing.
Oh.
She also felt very safe in her community, like most people do. Now, her cell phone records quickly kicked off the investigation, leading them to the first bits of CCTV footage of her the night she vanished. They knew she had gone to visit that friend for dinner. So they started with her route from her friend's house and in the direction she would have gone. She was seen on a doorbell camera walking down Cavendish Road towards her destination earlier in the evening. So they're like, okay, she came from this way, about 5, 6, close to 6 o'clock. She came from this way, so maybe she's going back down that way.
Right.
Then she's next seen entering Sainsbury's to buy a bottle of wine to take to dinner. And in that video, you could see her outfit very clearly. It was a colored video, which can I just say was so cute.
Oh,
she was so cute. She was wearing this cream-colored beanie with a matching cream-colored shirt tucked into like navy straight leg pants that had like this pattern on them. She also had like this reddish orange hoodie on with a bright turquoise jacket over it.
Oh my goodness.
And then her tennis shoes matched her orange hoodie and turquoise jacket.
Oh, how cute.
They were turquoise with orange laces. Oh. I mean, is she not the cutest?
Yeah, that's cute.
She was cutie, matchy. So the detectives learned that Sarah left her friends at about 9 o'clock, right? And I said that in the beginning. She had a cell phone call with her boyfriend, which I also mentioned, as she headed home. So they had those timestamps. Following the pings and the direction she would have been traveling to get home, they found CCTV of her walking alone on Bowood Road near the A205 South Circular Junction at 9:15. That makes sense.
Okay.
The way she would have been walking. And I know I'm going to be throwing a lot of like locations and times. Just stick with me, okay?
Yeah, I'm following. Okay, so it would have been a 15-minute walk or two around that area that she was seeing.
So it was right by her friend's house. She left about between 9 and 9:15.
Okay, gotcha.
I mean, who's looking at the clock, Yeah. Your friend's like, well, she left about 9:15. So,
yeah, okay.
But we did have that cell phone call with her boyfriend. So that helps us with the timeline.
Okay.
So she's seen on CCTV on that road, and she has her phone to her ear, which verified the phone call that she was on with her boyfriend. Lastly, she's seen walking back down Cavendish Road the same way she came hours before when she went to her friend's house, still alone, still on the phone, with a timestamp of 9:28 p.m. on the camera. And this is about when that phone call ended with her boyfriend. They said their goodbyes. He said, it's not like the phone went dead at that time. We said goodbye. I love you. Talk to you later. And then they hung up with each other. Now, just a few days after Sarah was reported missing, there were tweets and missing posters with Sarah's bright, beautiful face plastered all over London lampposts and bus stops. News outlets were reporting on Sarah's disappearance, and the case was quickly gaining national attention. I feel like in the U.S., we would see a report of a woman missing and be like, oh, how sad, let's
another
pray
one
for her. Yeah, another one. Let's pray she's found, because we see them so often. But in England, people were like, how could this happen? Like they're sitting with their cup of tea going, how could this happen? Am I safe? Like, could that happen to me? Well, authorities were already hard at work scouring the route that Sarah would have taken to get home, with particular interest paid to those areas that she was captured on CCTV, because maybe they're missing something. Maybe somebody was following her. Who knows? So the timeline of her movements were slowly being put together to determine where she went after that 9:28 sighting on Cavendish Road, because all they know is that was her last contact. Mm-hmm. That's the last time we saw her. She wasn't with anybody, and she didn't go home.
Right.
And it's, from there to her home is miles. So she could be anywhere. Did she hop on the underground? She go somewhere.
Right. So was there any other CCTV after that?
Well, chill. Keep your panties on. I'm getting there. A couple more days rolled by, and now it was 5 days into the search for Sarah, and investigators were baffled, really. I mean, like you, they're like, well, what else? Mm-hmm. Like, is there any more? Like, tell me more. They were frustrated that they didn't know more at that time. They would ultimately review a nearly 2,000 hours of CCTV footage from absolutely everywhere in London.
Wow.
And they had a team just sitting on their booties in there, glued to this small screen.
Wow. Good on them for the effort.
Absolutely. And they were, they had a specific team dedicating all their time to watching all this grainy footage looking for Sarah. When suddenly a detective sergeant came barreling through the door to fetch Officer Goodwin and said, you have to come see this now. Amazingly. And I've watched this clip multiple times. I do not know how they saw her in this clip, because I can hardly make her out now that they like circle her.
Okay, right.
But amazingly, someone's keen eye caught a glimpse of Sarah on CCTV from a bus. Oh. She wasn't on the bus. The city buses have like exterior cameras, so the camera caught her as the bus was driving by. She's standing on the sidewalk of Pointers Road at 9:35, just minutes after she was last seen alone, walking, minding her own business, and she's standing next to a white car, and its hazards are flashing.
Oh.
Then another camera angle, I don't know if it was from the same bus or if it was a different bus passing by, but that angle showed her standing there with a man.
Oh.
And you could tell they were speaking. He appeared to be speaking to her or at her.
Oh.
Seems like she was listening. Like he had his hands up and it looked like he was explaining something to her. There didn't appear to be any like strange thing about it at first. They were standing a few feet apart. They were talking cordially, nothing awry. 3 minutes later, at 9:38, another bus camera captures the same white car. This time, both of the front doors were open.
Oh.
So investigators assume that by this time, Sarah and this man are now both inside the car.
Right.
Perhaps one of the most chilling and valuable pieces of information came from a couple who witnessed Sarah's abduction.
What?
Though at the
time, nobody
came.
Okay.
Well, they didn't know what they were seeing at first. Like, so as they drove by Pointers Road, they're driving down Pointers Road. The lady in the car sees this young woman being handcuffed.
No.
And escorted into this white car.
What?
And she remarked to her partner, well, that's something you don't see every day. Like, I don't think I've ever seen a woman being handcuffed. She must have done something wrong, you know?
Right.
And it was an unmarked car. So she was like, wow. And it wasn't until she learned of Sarah's disappearance that she was like, oh my God.
Oh.
That's what happened.
Yeah. So he was impersonating a police officer to her.
Keep your panties on, Lena.
I'm trying to solve
you
this
need
myself.
To calm down.
Okay.
Take a drink and take a breath. We are so just scratching the surface here. This case is nauseating. The witness said that Sarah was compliant. She seemed to be following his instructions and walking with her head down, handcuffed as she walked towards the car.
Oh my gosh.
The investigators identified the white Vauxhall through the many The Vauxhall is the brand of the car, if you didn't know. And I only know what that is because Daniel owned one at one point. Through the many surveillance cameras in the area as being a rental car. Rented to a man named Wayne Cousins.
Dude, you put your name stamped
Talk about
right
cousins
on
on crime. The name did not ring a bell to anybody at first. Through the rental company, and they call it hired car over there. I love it. They had his phone number. They had his name, address. And let me tell you, having all of that is a crap ton more than they had 30 minutes ago.
Yeah, true.
5 days ago. Mm-hmm. The last person to see Sarah, presumably, they've got all this information on him. But who is Wayne Cousins? Like, Sarah's friends and family didn't know who that was. He wasn't someone Sarah knew. And one of the detectives did a quick search, and there had been a criminal complaint against Wayne Cousins just 3 days before Sarah's disappearance for indecent exposure.
Okay, in the same area.
Not in the same area. The man drove through the McDonald's drive-thru with his little chicken McNugget exposed to the poor girl at the window.
Ew.
I promise you.
Don't do that.
That is not on the menu, sir.
No.
We don't want to see it. Put it away. Now, in a case that was just getting warmer and warmer, a cold chill swept down the spines of the police as they realized that Sarah got into a car with a depraved, calculated sexual predator.
Oh, no.
I can only imagine the nauseating feeling that must have felt at that time, predicting how this might end up.
Right. Like she's willingly getting into this car thinking that she's in trouble.
Arrest.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
And just as they're catching their breath from thinking about this, one of their researchers revealed something that sent a new shockwave through New Scotland Yard. Wayne Cousins was a police officer.
He was a police officer.
Yeah.
Not on duty.
He worked for the Metropolitan Police and was in the Parliamentary Diplomatic Protection Group as well.
Oh.
By the time they learned this, the detectives were already en route to Wayne Cousins' house to question him, which was down in Deal in Kent, which is about 2 hours from London. And my Auntie Gail lives there. Hi, Gail. So they had to call the detectives and be like, this is what you're rolling up on, okay? He's a police officer.
Oh.
He's got weapons.
Right.
And he would no doubt know maybe what to say or
sure,
like how to avoid questioning or something like that. So they body cam footage shows police approaching Wayne's home and knocking on the door, which he quickly opened himself.
Right, because he thinks he can talk his way out of it.
Yeah. Detective Inspector Nick Harvey was like, I'm going in.
Oh.
He's got that door open. So he just stuck his leg in there and walked right in. Showed him his warrant card and was like, I'm in here. And once Wayne laid eyes on them, the color just drained from his face. I mean, he looked white as a ghost, gray even.
Oh, wow.
He sat down on his couch and they told him, you're under arrest for kidnapping. This is funny because this would not happen in the U.S. But they sat him down on the couch, cuffed him, and they questioned him in his home on his couch.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Yeah. So they read him his rights and everything. And Wayne was sitting on his sofa being questioned. And while they were questioning him, the rest of the team wasted no time going to look for Sarah. They're like, is she
Where's
here?
she at?
Like looking for anything that, of course they didn't find her there. When shown a photo of the missing woman, he denied knowing Sarah or knowing where she was. But when Detective Harvey said, I think you know where she is, he knew he better think of something real quick. Right. You know, like when you catch a child and they've done something, like they've chocolate all over their mouth.
hand in the cookie jar.
Yeah, exactly. And they're like, that's exactly what he did. He was stuttering, trying to make things up as he went along. He told police that well, I'm just in a real financial mess.
Oh.
And he'd been asked by some Eastern European gang to pick up women and turn them in.
Oh, of course.
Them.
Right.
So, and if he didn't, they would take his family away from him. So he said, oh, and by the way, a few days ago, I underpaid a prostitute, and this must be like penance. They made me do this because of that.
Did they make him show his little chicken McNugget too?
I hope not, because ain't nobody got time for it. He said all he did was pick up Sarah and take her to these 3 gang members, and she was alive and well. When he dropped her off, he said, hand on heart, I don't know where she is.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, he'd shut down. Detective Harvey reported back to Officer Goodwin and said, we're taking him into custody. Mm-hmm. We're heading back up there. He tells her this story about the gang and the, having to pick Sarah up and deliver her. She's like, BS.
Yeah.
It sounded like lunacy, of course, but Officer Goodwin is a seasoned investigator. She told the BBC, I had to at least explore,
mm-hmm.
even for a moment, this wild story. Of course, it led
right.
nowhere. So they pulled Wayne's phone records. And just like Sarah's phone records, they were very revealing. They didn't find any weird phone calls from any shady individuals. They did, however, get enough information to map out his movements the night he took Sarah and the days afterwards.
Oh, well, do tell.
So his phone had been up in Clapham in London. How odd. Because that's where Sarah went missing.
Right.
That's strange. So 2 hours after he put Sarah in that car, he was down in Dover, which is about 2 hours down south near Dill. They saw that he'd made a trip to and from Hodes Wood, which is a large wooded area in Kent. And as it turns out, his family owned a piece of land in Hodes Wood.
Oh.
So investigators are slowly stacking their notebooks and reluctantly grabbing their car keys and saying, we've got to go to the woods.
Yeah.
March 10th, after hours of searching the vast wooded area filled with dense brush, areas of standing water, and piles of dumped garbage, what they call fly tipping in England, at 4:45 p.m., they located human remains in some water, and they were pretty confident that it was Sarah Everard, and her family was notified.
Oh.
It would take them 2 days to actually confirm their dental records, but they knew.
Mm-hmm.
Her body had been put in an old, disgusting, rusted refrigerator that someone dumped there amongst other garbage. And then set on fire.
No.
Her pants and jacket were not on her, which screamed sexual assault, of course. And her autopsy later revealed that her cause of death was compression of the neck. A candlelight vigil was organized for March 13th to take place in Clapham Common in London to honor Sarah and to bring awareness to the new fear growing in the community. Mm-hmm. Women were like, well, I don't know if it's safe to walk to and from my friend's house now. Like, that doesn't feel good anymore.
No.
And you do second guess your safety. Last time I was in England, actually, in the fall of 2022, my nephew told me that there had been some recent stabbings.
Oh, goodness.
So, and I was like, what? Like, my village? My little safe place that I feel is safe on this earth? And so, it kind of did make me look over my shoulder as I was walking around there.
Right.
And it kind of, crushes your sense of safety.
Well, I mean, as a true crime enthusiast, Candace, you should
I've always got my head on a swivel.
On guard.
So the day arrived for the candlelight vigil, but police said the vigil couldn't go ahead.
Oh.
Because of COVID restrictions. Yeah, they were on lockdown. They're like, guys, we understand, but let's not forget we're in the middle of a pandemic.
Right.
People came anyway. They came anyway. Hundreds and hundreds of people gathered in the park throughout the day. in the open air to openly air their frustrations. Countless strangers turned up with bouquets of flowers and laid them around the gazebo in the park, rows and rows, 60, 70, 100 deep. And it was somber and respectful for hours, you know. And as night fell, people lit candles, and some walked the route that Sarah would have walked on her way home. Laying little candles to light the path. But back at the park, tensions were beginning to form. What began as a time to honor Sarah's life kind of turned into an all-out mess.
What
People
happened?
began to go into the gazebo or this bandstand area to make their feelings heard about feeling unsafe. Like, we are not going to take this, considering a member of law enforcement murdered Sarah. Also in attendance, the police who were there to tell people to get down off the bandstand and go home. They were trying to enforce COVID restrictions, and the attendees were like, get off of me. Like, you could be a perv. Like, I don't know.
Oh my gosh. But come on, people. Like, one bad apple.
I know, but women were being tackled to the ground by police.
Some
were being handcuffed and escorted away because they were getting rowdy.
I mean, but
they were being defiant.
Okay,
so they were being arrested and escorted away. Then you had these men who had come with their girlfriends or partners or sister or whatever.
Right.
And they're getting all puffed up, going, get off of her, you know, acting all blokey. And so it just turned into this whole big, wild riot mess.
Oh, come on, guys. Like, this is supposed to be a peaceful...
I know, but it just spiraled out of control, really. I mean,
emotions
chaos.
Are high, okay, but just because one police officer does something stupid does not mean all of them are like that. I mean, that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah. Cressida Dick, the commissioner of the Met, addressed the public the following day because people were pissed. The community was like, what on earth is going on now? Like, you've got this woman missing. Turns out she was murdered by a police officer. And now you've got police officers tackling women in the park.
Because they were getting...
I know, but that, you know how things like... You know how things can be presented.
But let's be logical here.
So anyways, they're like, people gathered to honor Sarah, lean on each other, and have their fears heard only for this to happen.
Right.
So let me get this straight. First, Wayne Couzens has this indecent exposure incident days before her murder. Mm-hmm. Nothing was done. And now this?
Right.
There seemed to be a divide forming between the public and the police now.
Okay, but they did their work. They arrested the man. Mm-hmm. He's in jail now. Like,
yeah, but I mean, in the moment, we have the benefit of hindsight. You know, there's a lot of time has passed since this incident, but these people were living it, and you know, you see something on the news, or you hear something from someone, or someone sends you an article, and you just, what? You know, without looking into it or knowing the details. Mm-hmm. The commissioner, Cressida Dick, stood in front of this room of reporters looking quite embarrassed at how her officers had behaved, and fielded questions about her possible resignation over this. And she was like, no, I'm not resigning.
Goodness.
I'm sorry about all of this, but you know. But while the public grappled with Sarah's death and everything that came along with it, Wayne Couzens remained in custody, and the investigation into exactly what happened to Sarah was going 100 miles an hour. Mm-hmm. Authorities were turning over every stone, reviewing every bit of CCTV footage that they could get their eager hands on, and they were uncovering a clear picture of the days leading up to Sarah's abduction.
Oh.
Wayne Couzens had marked on his family calendar at home that he'd be working the night of March 3rd so that they wouldn't expect him home. You know, the family calendar that he shares with his wife and his two children.
Wife. Oh.
You know, the one that says like play date with such and such, or soccer game or football game, or like pick up more milk, you know.
Ew.
That family calendar. He drove from his home in Deal over to Dover that afternoon, which was about 20 minutes away. And he picked up the rental car that he'd booked 3 days before.
Premeditated.
Mm-hmm. He can be seen on CCTV speaking with the attendant at Enterprise Rental Car. And then he drives out of the garage with the white Vauxhall around 4:50 p.m. Lord Justice Fulford would later say in court that the white Vauxhall looked an awful lot like a police car. Unmarked, of course, but he knew what he was doing.
Right.
From the rental facility, he drove up to London to find his victim. He had already decided he was going to carry this out, and he was in motion at this point. Now, it's a little over 2 hours drive, like I said, from Dover to London, but he might have hit a little traffic, so let's just say it took him maybe 2.5 hours to get up there.
Okay.
Because he did leave like close to 5. What was he doing from 7:20, let's say around 7:20 when he gets there, the approximate time he arrives, to the time he spots Sarah at 9:30? What was he doing for those 2 hours?
Sitting on the side of the road, waiting for someone to walk by,
Plucking
driving.
up the courage, taking out his little chicken McNugget, showing it to people as they pass. Now, Sarah was seen walking down Cavendish Road, like we said, at 9:27, and minutes later at 9:32, the white Vauxhall is seen driving down the same road. So he saw her.
Yeah.
2 minutes later, from 9:32, when the white Vauxhall is seen on Cavendish Road, 2 minutes later, 9:34, is when that bus captures Sarah and Wayne speaking in the car. So he whipped that car around.
Yeah. He's like, she's the one.
And he pulled onto the sidewalk, almost blocking her path.
Oh my gosh.
And he quickly, it didn't take him long, took him minutes to convince her that she was breaking the law.
Oh.
There's a shot in that CCTV where he's kind of holding out his hand and it looks like he's holding something, and investigators believe he was showing her his warrant card.
Okay.
A warrant card in the UK is just basically your ID, your police ID.
Okay.
So they believe that he was saying to her, you're not meant to be out, even though you can see other people in the footage.
Right.
You're not meant to be out. I'm going to have to take you into custody.
Ugh.
And she believed she was in the wrong. I mean, she believed it so much that she
Agreed.
complied.
Yeah.
So once Sarah gets in that car, investigators believe she was alive all the way from London, where he picked her up, back down to where he lived in Dill. As a reminder, it's about 2 hours drive.
Yes.
I can't even begin to imagine the range of emotion she must have felt on that car ride. You know, at first, I mean, she thought she was under arrest.
Right.
So there's at least a little bit of time where she believes he's taking her to jail, or she's thinking about who she needs to call. Like, what do I need to do to get out of, like, she's thinking of all the things that she's got to do to rectify this situation on the other end.
Mm-hmm.
At what point did she realize that the trouble she was in was actually so much worse than she thought?
Oh, for sure. Oh.
That the reality of the situation was so much worse than being arrested.
Oh, I hate this.
No one but God and Wayne knows what was said in that car. And I hope that conversation replays in his head every time he has a quiet moment alone to think. Yeah. Now, after learning a little bit about her and what she was like, she probably tried reasoning with him. She was a very educated woman with a great corporate job in a man's world. And she probably was mansplained too on a daily basis, having worked in marketing and, in that corporate world and dealing with blokes who thought, oh, you're just a girl. She probably had a confidence about her, and she probably felt like maybe I can get through to him if I just talk to him. That's what I would do.
Yeah.
Though we can't be sure of the words that were spoken between Sarah and the monster that took her away from everyone that loved her, we have a pretty good idea of the final hours of her life, logistically speaking. Automatic number plate recognition, ANPR for short, and cell phone data showed that after Wayne abducted Sarah, he drove her back down south to Dover, like I said, where he'd left his car. Remember, he picked up that rental car from Dover. Well, he had parked his crappy Seat, which is his car. He parked his car in a non-residential area and walked over to get the rental car. So now he's back down in Dover. Authorities believe that he transferred Sarah to his Seat, still alive, around 11:30 p.m. The white rental is seen on CCTV at 11:31 entering the area, and then his Seat is seen driving away from the location at 11:43.
Okay.
After this, he drove to a remote area and raped Sarah, and police believe that he likely murdered her at that location. Let's take a moment here because that was a lot.
Yeah.
And we're not done. I have a real problem, and I've mentioned this before, with when people don't get to die surrounded by their loved ones.
Right.
They're taken away to some random place and
taken advantage of.
They spend the last moments of their life with a stranger, a monster, and they're violated and defiled.
And probably so afraid.
Let's continue. The next time his car is picked up is by ANPR at 2:31 a.m. in Dover. Then he journeys to Ashford, which is about 30 minutes west of Dover.
Goodness.
And thanks to cell phone data, we know he was driving towards Hodes Wood at 4:28 a.m., which of course is where Sarah's body was eventually found. He spent almost 2 hours there before his car was picked up again on CCTV driving away from Hodes Wood. Next, he's back in Dover at 8:15, and he treats himself to a coffee at Costa.
Oh, goodness.
Just enjoying a casual cup of coffee since you just murdered someone.
Since he was so busy running about town.
He needed a little caffeine, Lena.
Yeah.
He hadn't slept all night. He was very busy. And he wasn't going home anytime soon. He had a mess to clean up.
Mm-hmm.
He returned his rental car that morning, or that afternoon actually, and he called in sick to work saying he was really stressed.
Oh, what are you so stressed about, honey?
I'll say you ought to be stressed. Later that afternoon, still March 4th, by the way, the next day, CCTV placed him at B&Q in Dover, purchasing 2 green Rebel bags. B&Q in the UK is like Home Depot or Lowe's. The following day, March 5th, he bought a gas can and promptly went over to the pumps to fill it up. And a witness says they saw a fire in Hodes Wood around 12:45 p.m.
Goodness.
I'm not sure if they called that fire in. I assume they didn't, because it feels like they would have found her sooner if they had gone to the woods to see what the fire was all about. Now, at some point after this, he drove through Sandwich, not a sandwich, but the town Sandwich, and tossed Sarah's phone in the river store, which they were later able to recover. That is amazing to me, by the way.
That really is amazing.
Can I just say, this is what I mean about the police work. They were like, okay, her phone last pinged here. I bet it's in the river. And they went in the river and got her phone. It's just amazing. So the following day, March 6th, he contacted his supervisor to explain that he no longer wanted to be responsible for carrying a gun.
Oh.
This was all getting to him. It was too much. The supervisor's like, why don't you take some more time off?
Yeah. I don't know what's going on here, but
why don't you take a couple more days? He'd already called in sick the day before. And he was never supposed to work the night of the 3rd because he had just had a shift. So he was not supposed to work the night of the 3rd. So the supervisor's probably like, this guy's on the verge of a breakdown. Like, what's going on with you? You need to just relax. Go have a cup of Costa. So having found himself off the hook at work, he placed another Amazon order. This time for a tarp and a cargo net, which he received the next day. And on that day, March 7th, he took his wife and his children on a little outing.
No, he didn't.
He took them to their land at Hodes Wood.
No. Here, y'all go run around while I do some business.
That's exactly it.
Oh,
you know, I have to say something about this, okay? It's not uncommon for a perpetrator to return to the scene of the crime.
True.
Okay, it's
right.
It shows organization, control, and a bit of whimsy, you know?
Yeah.
And a bit of whimsy. They try to hang on to that feeling that they felt. But to return with your family...
I mean, maybe he thought if someone does come in question, I can say...
He was not ashamed of what he did.
No.
He was flaunting it.
Okay, that's another, yeah.
During Wayne's sentencing, prosecutor Tom Little told the court that Wayne Couzens' children were running around playing very near the fly tip pile that Sarah's body lay concealed.
Why?
Running around there.
Dude.
It's almost as if he wanted his wife or one of his kids to find her so that he could like call it in and be the hero. And
yeah, I mean, we could say that, but like the mind of a killer.
He's sick.
Yeah.
He is absolutely disgusting. His wife, Elena, I'm going to pronounce it that way because the alternative is Elena. And so
I mean, but it's not her fault.
I know. But she later told Mail Online that he was completely normal.
Oh, is that normal?
He was normal in the days after Sarah went missing.
But his boss didn't think so.
She said she said,
well, he had to keep a facade, right?
This is what she says. Quote, he didn't appear to be acting strangely. I didn't notice anything was wrong. And then she went on to say, quote, I can't comprehend it because he never once previously showed any glimpse of violence. He was never that way. End quote.
So what breaks to make someone plan so specifically the way he planned out for 3 days prior?
The escalation was rapid. Let's just say that. So by March 8th, he's being bombarded now with Sarah's beautiful face plastered all over the news. Her name is being blasted through the radio waves. And you better believe he's brushing shoulders with people on the street going, did you hear about that woman missing from London? My God, they still haven't found her. He's supposed to report back to work March 8th, but he called in sick again. And I bet by now his supervisor was sick of him, and they couldn't know just how sick they were about to be.
Right.
By this time, investigators at New Scotland Yard were hot on his tail.
Mm-hmm.
So if the cell phone, ANPR, and CCTV evidence wasn't enough for you, Lena, other details were discussed at his sentencing hearing on September 30th, 2021. You know how Wayne ordered that tarp and cargo net from Amazon after Sarah's murder? Well, he had purchased adhesive cling film from Amazon, and I believe I said he made another Amazon purchase, because I was like jumping ahead.
Oh.
But he had purchased adhesive cling film from Amazon. It was advertised as like carpet protector. Like you lay it down, it sticks to your carpet.
Okay.
And he received that days before pouncing on Sarah. That material was found in his car. Also found in his car was a broken piece of Sarah's SIM card. So I guess he took that SIM card out at some point.
Maybe she took her phone out of her pocket to be like,
maybe
I need help.
Maybe he grabbed it and smashed it against, who knows. They found an unused condom and lube.
Oh, God. Oh, Jesus.
Plastic gloves, a handcuff key, and a knife and a torch.
Wow.
Which is a flashlight. I should probably have written this in English. I mean, American English, not English. Oh, sorry, everybody. Most damning was that Sarah's blood was found in the back seat along with semen in the same location, matching Wayne's disgusting DNA profile.
Oh, jeez.
His actions leading up to and following Sarah's abduction, rape, and murder leave no question that he planned his crime.
Right.
And he knew or thought he knew what lengths to take to not leave evidence behind.
Mm-hmm.
Thankfully, he wasn't as smart as he thought he was.
Yeah.
Now, to this day, police still have many questions. The first one, of course, is why? I don't like that question because there will never be a good answer for why. Even if he explained himself, it would never satisfy her family.
No.
And their broken hearts.
No.
And we could go into the psychology of a sexual predator, but then the question would be, well, why Sarah?
Exactly.
And then the answer to that is not good enough.
It's a snowball.
I think another question that most of the detectives had next was, how did that indecent exposure crime go unpunished? In 2015, a poor lady was riding her bike when she stumbled on Wayne Couzens pulling his plunker out in the countryside, nude.
Oh.
And she reported that incident. What's more, they had his number plate and he was identified as the guy she saw.
Okay.
But there was no investigation, and he continued his duties as a police officer.
Mm-hmm.
They had him. Like, why wasn't an investigation done?
I mean, what was his...
Why weren't criminal charges pursued?
Right. Was he questioned? Did he give some kind of, oh, it wasn't like that?
He would have likely been let go from the Met. I mean, or put on suspension or something like that. That was a terrible fumble. I don't know who to blame for that.
No, I don't know.
Kent Police, the Met, someone along the way said, Okay, well, what about some other things I'm about to tell you? There wasn't just that one time at McDonald's. There was 2 times, actually. He had taken his little pee-pee out. He didn't touch anyone with it, so no harm, right? Lady Eilish Angiolini criticized the police and the media, saying that indecent exposure crimes are, quote, often trivialized. The act is typically referred to as flashing, a colloquialism that does not convey the deep, sinister nature and seriousness of what is a sexual crime, end quote. I think she put that perfectly. Yeah. People don't just go around whipping out their junk in public.
No.
It's just not something people do.
Right.
Even a sex addict wouldn't just go whip it out. There is a depraved compulsion to do something like that.
Right.
Lady Angiolini went on to say that, quote, police forces should ensure that they have specialist policies on investigating all sexual offenses, including indecent exposure. Sarah didn't have to die.
No.
If this had been treated like an actual crime, what about him doing it months apart. He did it in the drive-thru once, and then months later he did it again in the drive-thru.
Right.
And literally days later, he kidnapped and murdered Sarah. Wayne Couzens pled guilty to kidnapping and raping Sarah, and then finally, a month later, he admitted to murdering her. He was sentenced to a whole life term without the possibility of parole. They weren't playing down at Old Bailey. They said, nope, lock him up. Mm-hmm. They're not going to give him an opportunity to do this again because, like we said, the escalation was
they've already
so
seen
rapid here.
Right.
I mean, he did that in DC. What about maybe he did other things that weren't reported?
Exactly.
Maybe he
that's what I'm sitting here
sexually harassed or, kidded around with people and they just didn't say anything.
Other women that he really did arrest. Like, how did he treat them? Or that I'm sitting here thinking as you're telling the story, I'm like, okay, has he done this before?
I think this was his first kill. And I'll tell you why. He made so many mistakes during the process.
And his stress afterwards.
I think it escalated so far and he was so gung-ho about it. And then after, I don't think he felt sorry or anything like that. Yeah. I don't think he had any remorse because he never showed remorse really.
Right.
I think it was a matter of almost like an adrenaline dump.
Oh, okay.
Or just like
or like you said, seeing her face plastered everywhere.
And realizing the gravity of what he had done. And like I said, I really think it was the first time he had abducted someone and killed them. Yeah. Like, we talk about, they definitely killed more people. Like, I truly believe this was his first.
Okay.
Just because of all the stupid mistakes he made along the way. So in 2023, he was sentenced to 19 additional months for his indecent exposure incidences before he murdered Sarah.
Let's get that on the books.
Right. They could have said, he's already in there for life, but no. They wanted to hold him accountable for the stuff he should have been held accountable for in the first place.
Right.
What do I say? Slap him with the charges. Mm-hmm. The sentencing hearing also gave an opportunity to put him on blast for those actions. Oh. You nasty, disgusting perv. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it's also important, like I say, slap him with the charges from the legal standpoint, because what if something else falls through? You've got charges on them.
Yes.
To keep them held. But also, let's tell everybody how gross you are. You know what I mean? Let's
the shame.
Let's tell them. Mm-hmm. And finally, I want to end on Sarah.
Okay.
After everything has been said, all the timelines, the horror.
Right.
I don't want her to get lost in all of that.
Right.
Sarah Everard lived in Brixton, South London, working, like I said, as a marketing executive. She was beautiful. I know it sounds cliche to say that she lit up every room she walked into, but she deserves to have that said about her.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. If it's true, it's true.
If it's true, it's true. Because just look at her photo. Just look at her picture. Actually, most of the resources that I used in my research remarked at how people in the UK were just learning about this person exists, Sarah Everard. Oh my God, she's so, look at her face. Like, I wish I could have known her.
Right.
And it was that kind of feeling when people would even just see her picture. It was like, why couldn't I have just met her?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
A former boyfriend of hers described her as extremely intelligent, savvy, and streetwise.
Aww.
And said that she wasn't a gullible person at all.
Wow.
So her abduction struck everyone as very calculated.
Wow.
Her mother said she was funny and smart, but she wasn't just book smart. She was good at practical things too. Her mom recounted that they would just chat and how Sarah was just such a great listener. Sarah's caring spirit, coupled with her grounded principles, made her family so proud to call her theirs. I imagine some parents kind of toil with the trajectory of their child. Like, oh, they're making the wrong choices. But not Sarah's family. Yeah. They knew her values was headed and in principles.
A right direction.
Yeah, she had purpose, and she would thrive in this world. And she did. She did thrive in this world. And I just want to leave you with that.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you for telling us of her story. And I'm not going to comment much on it because I want to leave it in such a positive note on her. So
yeah, just go look at her picture. It just says everything that, like, it's weird because she kind of looks like my sister-in-law's sister.
Okay.
And so when I see her, I'm just like, oh, she's somebody I know.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
She just looks English and somebody I know. You know what I mean? So it's so sad. And all these places, Kent, Dover, and Dill, like, that's my area. Like, Kent is where my husband's from, and that's my stopping grounds. In fact, we just booked our trip to England, and Daniel was saying we have to pick up the car in Dover. And I said, is it Enterprise? So, that's it. Rest in peace, Sarah.
Yes, rest in peace. Well, that was great. Let's do it again sometime.
Let's do it. We'll see y'all next week, guys.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Cousins on Crime. Get connected with us by becoming a free member on our Patreon. Or for just $5 a month, you'll have access to bonus episodes, discussion groups, and much more. If you can't afford $5 a month, we get it. Inflation, am I right? Please consider leaving us a positive review and rating wherever you listen.
And don't forget merch. Support our podcast and show the love by sporting t-shirts with our latest designs, or grab an evidence bag to keep the chain of custody for all your valuables. Don't forget to follow our show on your favorite streaming app so you never miss an episode, and get photos and updates on our Instagram at Cousins on Crime Podcast or our Cousins on Crime Facebook page. Have a case suggestion? Email us at cousinsoncrime@gmail.com.